And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a little game called World Shapers. Now, the theme of World Shapers is building a world, blah, blah, blah. And I say blah, blah because the back of the box even just says, hey, World Shapers is a card drafting game where you're trying to outwit your opponents to create the greatest world possible. It's like, yeah, whatever. It's a card drafting game. That's what it is. It's a card drafting game using different elements, and you're trying to make combos with these cards to score points. But you can also enhance these cards with power crystals to make a card better. What am I talking about? Let's take a look. In this game, each player is going to have a columns in front of them of earth, air, fire, water, just like every other game. So in a two-player game, you just put the tiles like this, and we each be putting cards in a column. And with a 3- or 4-player game, you just put these by the other players so that they have their own columns. You're going to be forming columns to score at the end of the game. Each player is going to start with some power crystals, and there's going to be 2 or 3 rounds depending on the number of players. In each round, you're going to have a certain number of cards, and you're going to be looking at these cards, picking one to play or discard, and then passing the rest to the next player. So that's a draft. When you play a card, you can simply place it in the column where it matches. Like this one here would match the air. And as you place these, you're going to place them so you can see each card as you place them in front of you. Now, some of the cards, when you play them, will have an instant effect on them. And there's symbols in the corner that will show you what happens. Like, for example, when I play this one, I get to take a power crystal. It happens immediately. Some of them are going to have endgame scoring here. So at the end of the game, having the most water symbols, if I play this one, is going to provide 6 points. But this has an enhancement on it too. On your turn, you can place one of your power crystals on a card to enhance it. That would make this, if you have the most water symbols at the end of the game, to have 10 points. And so you don't have that many power crystals, so you are going to have to decide which of your cards you're going to enhance. Like here, each air symbol gives you 1 point at the end of the game. But if I power it up, each set of 3 air symbols gives me an extra 2 beyond that. So players have to decide that. Now you can, on your turn, discard a card from your hand to get another power crystal, but you may only do that once per round. You can only, so you're not going to be able to just load up on power crystals and get rid of cards. But you can also, there's a pool of cards over here, pay a power crystal to get rid of the card from your hand and play one of these cards over here instead. Now at the end of the game, you're simply going to score each column on a score sheet here, and the number of points the cards are worth, their creation points, are listed on the sides, but there are bonus ones. Sometimes, like this card here, counts as 2 fire symbols, or if you've enhanced it, it counts as 4 for purposes. You're going to have to compare to everybody else sometimes for the cards. There's just a lot of different aspects and combinations, and whoever has the most creation points is the winner of the game. Every single card in this game has different artwork. By the way, these cards are fantastic. Linen finish, they're great, but the artwork here is gorgeous. And I like the fact that the background of the cards, this is wild, but the background of them also has a tint of that color, so I don't accidentally put it in the wrong column. Like this is land, and it's green, it has a green thing. But just because it's green doesn't mean the picture itself is boring. And you can see here, they just did a really good job. I'm really happy with the look of this. Now, the text is very small here. Take a power crystal. That's pretty small compared to everything else on this card. And so you're going to run into that problem, I think, as the game goes by, if you have a hard time seeing little print. And it does take a bit to score the game. I don't think anybody here, I would not play with anybody who has to look at every card everybody else has all the time and know what they do and drag the game out, because it's not easy to look at other people's stuff and see it. The tiles themselves are good quality, and the power crystals are, well, they're the same crystals in every other game. It's a nice game, produced game in a small box. Now, this is a small game, but it's not quite what I would call a filler. A filler is those short little games you play before or after the main game. This is not main game status, but it's also, there's some depth here. Yes, it's just card drafting, but this is a thoughtful card drafting game. This is a drafting game where you're going to take a look at your cards. You're going to see how many you have out there. Now, I said you can't and probably shouldn't look at every card your opponent has. But there are some basic things you need to check. So, for example, if I have that one card that I mentioned earlier where, if I have the most of a certain category, I'll score points. Well, then I can look over there and see that Susan has 6 fire symbols. I'm probably not going to play it because I don't think I can catch her on that. But I might sit there and go, she has 4 and I have 4. Okay, I'm going to take this card and play it, but now I need to get them up. And also, if you tell everyone what your cards are, you reveal them and talk about them, I at least might say, oh, well, Bob did play, he's going to try to get the most fire symbols. So how do I counter that? How do I go, push back on that? And I find that to be interesting. The cards themselves all do very similar things. They provide you with good symbols, give you points for having the most symbols, give you power crystals. That enhancement thing is a really nifty thing too, because you cannot enhance all your cards. You're just not going to be able to, probably. And so you have to decide which ones to enhance. And it's really like a gut punch when you enhance a card and then it doesn't even work. So you have to try to figure out which ones to enhance, when to enhance a card. I feel like these are good decisions. This is a small game, but feels bigger than it is. Now, it's not a perfect game. Like I said, it's easy to run into somebody who would want to know what everybody has, and that will drag the game down to an interminable, I don't want to be involved in that kind of game. And they could have made the text bigger. And, sometimes you might pick a card and you just don't get the symbols you need for it. You just don't draft them, or, people will hate draft you where they take a card you want on their turn. But other than that, I think there's some neat ideas here. It's a nice box. It has pretty artwork. It's a drafting game that feels more involved than many of the quick ones, which could also be a detriment if you're looking for a quick drafting game. But I suspect this is a game that a lot of people have let slide by, haven't really taken a look at, and I think it's worth stopping and trying this one out. So that's World Shapers. Check it out. I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. Dice Tower Judgment approved.